Okay, welcome everybody who's listening to this podcast. I have today with me Marcus Oakey. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and you're a charisma coach. Like,
Yeah,
how did that happen and what is it all about?
that's a good question. So when I was growing up, when I was coming out of my teens, I was at college and university. I always got stuck with this label of being weird, like, oh, there's that weird guy, and that was so painful. And yeah, I didn't want to be that weird guy. So I thought what I'd do when I moved colleges, because obviously I graduated and went to university. I thought, okay, this time I'm going to be really quiet, and that way no one will think I'm weird. Because I think of funny things to say sometimes, or just have ideas and I share them, and people would give me like this face, like.
Mm-hmm.
So this time I thought I'm not going to say anything, and then I got labeled as the weird quiet guy. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? How is this even possible? It's not fair. So, like all good stories, I met somebody who was going to be like my mentor, though they didn't know it at the time. And this was somebody in the university who was just really charismatic, really magnetic, funny. And I just thought, oh, I want to be like this guy. I want to be able to do what this guy is doing, because this guy would walk into a room, people would gravitate towards him. He'd have great conversations, and he was just a lot more happy. So I set out to think, can I learn this? Can this be broken down and can it be learned? And so fast forward a few years later, a friend of mine said, wow, you should teach what you've learned. And I was like, what? Don't be silly. And then I did. And so I became a charisma coach. And as far as I know, I was the first, but I'm sure everyone says they're the first. But there we go. So that's what I do. And that's how I got into it. That's the short story anyway.
Okay, and can you pinpoint any like magic moment on your journey that?
Yeah. The what, like that just shifted gears for me?
Yeah, that you then realized, okay, something changed, like how others perceive me, how I feel, how I'm doing.
Yeah, well, looking back, I can actually explain what happened, but at the time I didn't know it was a magic moment. And that magic moment happened, it was a couple of days after I handed in my dissertation at university. So it's like this great feeling of relief. And to celebrate, the university department arranged everyone to go out to a trip overseas to Dublin in Ireland. And so I was just kind of going through the elation of not having any work to do anymore, any academic studies. And we went to a nightclub. And I remember, because in nightclubs were like the most unfavorite environment I could possibly be in. Nightclub for me is like being a vampire and going to a garlic factory. I was like, oh God, okay, I gotta go to this nightclub, oh, whatever. And for some reason, I just decided to break the rules. And I don't mean like wearing trainers in the nightclub, although that is a good rule to break. I just decided to grab a girl's arm and pull her in and spin around. And she loved it. And so I did it again. And I remember just spinning these girls around like, way. And I was like, wow, I've never done this before. This is so outside my reality. And that carried on going on. And people were like, oh, who's this guy on the dance floor? Because my dancing is not a thing. I'm English, right? So my dancing is like not to the beat and being really awkward. That's it, right? I'm like, hey, when does this end? So I had this moment where I broke conventional rules because I didn't know what to do in that situation usually. And so as I look back now, I realize that the world we live in is full of little rules of things you should do and things you shouldn't do. And really, when you start breaking the rules, obviously we spend a lot of our time learning those rules, but when you start breaking them, that's when you start to have a much more interesting life. So that was an early magic moment, because success creates success, which creates success. You get like a snowball effect.
Yeah, I had someone, she made up her own dictionary and she found the word like the opposite of domino effect. The ominot effect.
Dominot effect.
Oh, the dominot.
Yeah.
It's even better. Okay.
Cool.
And how would you say, how would you define charisma? How can you define it?
That's kind of it's one of those definitions that's, if you look in the textbooks, it's kind of hard to put your finger on, but the practical answer is it's the ability to evoke emotions in others whilst making them feel safe. And so if you can create emotion in somebody, that means you're different from every other person. Most of us don't create emotions with people unless we get to know them really well. But if we can create emotions from the offset, you're in a different kind of you're creating a different connection with that person. You're doing something different. So that's what it is on the surface. It's that ability to create emotions. But I think on a deeper level, it's the ability to not be blocked. So it's the ability to just, it sounds a bit weird, but it's to express who you are without any self-doubt or anything getting in the way. That just so you're just shining like a light. And some people are going to like that and some people aren't. But if you're being completely unstifled, unhindered, and people are enjoying it, that's that sweet spot of charisma. So on a deeper level, it's being unblocked, but on a more surface level, it's just about creating emotions in people in a consistent and safe way.
Okay. And how would you, because I'm also thinking about charm and charming, like where's the difference there?
Yeah, okay, so charm, so from my model of the world, and like everyone can have a model of reality. So I organize my model of what charisma is to encompass charm, almost as a foundation block of charisma. So what I look at is 7 different areas: charm, spontaneity, your belief, your attitude, presence, the way you communicate. Like for example, what would I call it? Like your oratory skills, like your ability to persuade and influence as well. So all these are components. So the component of charm, for me, what charm is the ability to be forgiving as you're chatting to people. Now, what does that mean now? I mean, okay, so you've got it like, yeah, okay, forgiveness. But it's also, for example, you've got something you really want to say. Somebody else comes up and tells a joke. And you lose that moment where you have a good joke to share and someone else steers the conversation away. You're like, but I had the funniest thing to say. So charm is almost like, I forgive. Okay, I let it go. I'm riding like the emotions of the conversation. It's if somebody changes the subject, just let it go. It's also forgiveness in the sense of playing with your status. So we have this idea of social status, like high status, low status. Often what gets confused is the concept of social status and the concept of social value. So for me, social status is a form of communicating. Like a high status person might sit upright and be, okay, here's what we're doing. A low status person might use their body language to be like, oh, okay, here's what we're doing. And we're taught low status is bad and high status is good. But really, if you can master low status and high status, that gives you a huge command of the emotions in a conversation. So if, for example, somebody tells a joke and it falls flat, you can use your status to kind of save them. For example, like somebody tells a joke and it's bad, you're like, oh my God, I thought my joke. So you can direct the limelight onto you to save them. But by doing that, you'll lower your status. But in doing that, you'll raise the other person's value. So your social value is really your relationship with yourself. Because if you value yourself, other people will value you as a part of that group. But your social status is your ability to flick between higher value and low value. And charming people understand this, and what they do is they will lower their status to make people feel comfortable, and they will raise their status when they want to lead people. And it's all, well, it's mainly done through body language and voice tonality. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm kind of blown away because I haven't heard of the concept of social value.
Okay.
And I like the idea what you say, that you can play around with the statues, like because often like we try to be like always act in persona, but if we would be more free,
yes,
in ourselves.
Yeah, to play like games of status, you have two aspects, right? You have your head. If your head's low, that's usually low status, and if your head's high, That's high status. So it's not too hard, right? Unless you've got a really sore neck and you're like, I'm just stuck in this status. I can't move. But the other thing we got is open body language. I don't know if you see that. And you got closed body language. And you can be high status with closed body language, or you can be low status with closed body language. Is like extra low, like, ugh. Or you can be high status with open body language, or you can be low status with open body language. But these two factors control, let's say, 80% of what status we're giving off. So the idea of value is really dependent on context. So before I know I'm kind of jumping down the rabbit hole a bit here, but what I mean by that is your context, in other words, your environment determines what people will find valuable. If we're both on a desert island and one of us is a doctor, well, that's hugely valuable, right? Your social value is just going. You can be a high status doctor who's high value, or you can be a low status doctor who's still high value because of the environment. And the other person on the island, they know how to get water, they know how to make fire, they know how to build shelter. Well, that might actually be even more valuable than the doctor because no one's sick right now. So value is changing all the time. And the only real control we have over our value is our relationship with ourselves. If we really love who we are, then our value is going to be pretty high, whatever the context. So,
so it all comes down to the relationship with yourself.
It seems to be that way. That's my conclusion after 15 years. But hey, in another 15 years, I'll be like, oh my God, I was completely wrong. All that stuff about that was just bullshit. Oh God, I hope no one took that talk. So I'm still learning, right? I'm still learning and piecing things together. But it would seem to be that how we feel about ourselves, how the voice in our head, if we have one, talks to us, that really determines what value we're projecting out. Because what we feel about ourselves is always coming through.
And I want to go deeper into that, just a moment before that, to tackle the question of authenticity versus manipulation, and is it allowed to work on your charisma, or should you be a natural?
That's a great question. And to answer that, what I'm going to do is draw your attention to a model I use, which is when we're learning a skill, we kind of go through 4 or 5 stages whenever we learn anything, right? So the first stage is we don't know we suck, right? So let's say you never knew you sucked at parachuting, right? Like, oh, in fact, don't do parachuting because that's not going to be good. You're going to bounce to the bottom. But let's say we never know we suck at parachuting. Then one day we go and do a parachute jump. There's not a lot to get wrong on a parachute jump, right? You just got to pull the cord. But let's say we do a parachute jump, we jump out of plane, but we make some mistake, right? We forget to pack the parachute. We're like, oh God, I forgot. But we're lucky because we land in some water or something. But level 2 is knowing that you suck. So level 1 is not knowing that you don't suck. Level 1 is having no idea you suck. Level 2 is realizing you suck at something. So talking to people, you might identify like, oh, I'm shy, or oh, I could improve those skills better. The third stage is when we can do something, but we have to think about it. It's conscious competence. So do you drive a car? Okay, so driving a car is a good example because you don't know you can't drive. Then you know you can't drive at all because you crash into something. But then when you focus, you can drive. And you're like, God, this is really stressful. I can't even think about listening to music on the radio. I've got to really focus on driving this car. But you can do it. That's conscious competence. That's level 3. Level 4 is once you pass your driving test, you can drive and you don't really think about it anymore. You can even put on the radio. Yeah, it's just because everything's on autopilot. Jumping out the plane, it's no problem. You got it sorted. You know when to pull the ripcord. All good. The 5th level and the final level is when you can go from a state of unconscious competence. So you don't have to think about it, unconscious competence, but you can break down what you're doing back into conscious competence. So to go through all those levels really quickly, you've got unconscious incompetence. That's level 1. Level 2 is conscious incompetence. Level 3 is conscious competence.
Yes.
Level 4 is unconscious competence. And level 5 is conscious unconscious competence. They're the 5 levels of learning. So in answer to your question about authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
authenticity is when you're coming from a place of truth. You're not trying to mask anything. Now, to learn how to talk to people, you might use a line. You might sort of, a really good line, for example, for starting a conversation is, you look. You see somebody, you say, oh, you look like you're having fun there, or you look bored, or wow, you look like you're just in a really good headspace right now. Whatever it might be, the you look observation will start a conversation, at least initially. And that's a really handy line. And that's useful for when you're at the level of conscious competence, level 3.
Mm-hmm.
So in answer to your question, so going around the houses there about authenticity, when you move into level 4, when you're not thinking about it anymore, that's when you're in a place of true authenticity.
Mm.
But to get authenticity, sometimes you've got to try out training wheels to work out what's right for you. Because, you might learn a way to stop somebody by just waving at them, but that might not feel right for you because it's not congruent. Or that might feel really good for you. That's a great way for stopping people, just giving them a little wave. So you have to play and try these things out. So as long as you're coming from a place of truth, that, your intent is maybe curiosity, or you want to see what happens, or you just want to express yourself in that moment, you'll get to authenticity super quickly.
So negative example would be like pick up gurus, or
it depends in what context. So when you have like dating people, what they're providing is a system to start conversations, for example, to hopefully get a date. And that would be like at that level 3. Where people run into problems is when they don't let go of that. They stick with that level 3 kind of programming. I must do it this way. And then what happens, their personality conflicts with the training tools. So eventually they outgrow the tools, but they're still doing them. A good example of that that I've seen is people seeing somebody on the street, they run up to them, stop them in the street and say, hey, you're really beautiful. Can I just tell you something really quickly? And that's great. But then they do it again and again. And yeah, I've done 1,000 approaches this month. Like, that's good. So a little way to solve that problem, whatever you're doing, right? If you're learning conversation skills, if you're learning dating skills, if you're learning just, you want to go up on stage and present to people, never do the same thing twice. Never say the same thing twice. Never stop somebody in exactly the same way. If you use the you look statement, don't say you look like you have nice shoes. Okay, that worked maybe once, but don't say that line again, because that will force your brain to become spontaneous and come up with new things. And new things are authentic.
Okay. I think that's a really important thing for life in general, no? Like people getting stuck with systems and how to approaches and leaving their own spontaneous core behind.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's the reason I have a job, I think, because systems are in place. Systems occur because of efficiency. So, we meet somebody, we might go for a very systematic conversation with them. Hi, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. And then the conversation dies. The fact that system exists is its efficiency, because we don't have to put too much effort into it, but also it's evolved over time as a cultural norm. So systems hold society and culture together. They serve a purpose, but what happens is we forget to be us. We forget to be alive. We forget to play and test the system and break the system a little bit. We stick with the system. And a really big meta system that exists is, you go to school, you go to college, maybe you go to university, you get a job, you work until you're 65, then you retire, then you end up in a rest home, and then you die. And that's a system. And you can get off that system at any time. But as soon as you start doing it, it's like playing Mario Kart. You try and get to the edges of the path, the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then like someone just comes along with a fishing rod and is like, no, you're supposed to go back here. You're supposed to. You should. And no, you don't have to. But it takes courage to get off the road. It takes courage to just go, you know what? I don't want to have that linear existence. I want to try doing random crazy stuff. The system's always there if you screw up, right? You can always go back to it. That's the good. But most people don't even want to risk screwing up. They're just like, no, I'm going to play it safe.
And that's an amazing analogy, no? With the, if you fail, you can go back and you're safe in the system, no? The system is playing it safe.
Yeah.
In a way.
Well, I think it's important you break rules, don't break laws. If you break laws, then the system might be like, hang on a minute, we don't want you back. Or we got a new system to put you in called prison. But if you break rules, that isn't no crime. And rules are everywhere. Like, one of the things I love doing is playing with these rules. Is, for example, if you meet someone, you go to shake their hand, the other person's just automatically going to put their hand out. It's just, we're systemized to do that. But what if you just like grab their hand and just spin them around? Or what if you just grab their hand and pull it towards you? What if you grab the hand and just go, arm wrestle? Now, there's a place for that in a business conversation. That might not go down very well because the other person you're talking to is so ingrained in their system that they don't know what to do. Their resources are limited. So what happens is if you push somebody beyond their resources to cope, they'll become part of the system. They're closed down. They get offended, for example. The sweet spot is you meet somebody, like in a business situation where you have to be serious, you take their hand and maybe you put your hand on top of their hand, just to make it a bit different. Or maybe you squeeze their hand a little bit, or maybe they squeeze your hand, like just little tiny nuances that just push the edges of the system. Or maybe you slap your hand on their shoulder. These little nuances are what kind of say, I know we're in a game right now and I'm happy to play along. Does the other person respond as well? Because that's how you can create really good business contacts and strong connections.
Okay, that's interesting. I want to go there also, but I was thinking, is there a difference between the rules, the little rules, and taboos?
I think taboos exist when you infringe on somebody's values, their value system. So a taboo might be you go to Japan and you wear your shoes in someone's house. And so, yeah, you've broken the rules. You're not going to go to prison. Well, probably not going to go to prison for wearing your shoes in somebody's house in Japan. But you've created a taboo because you've overstepped their personal boundary, right? You've violated their values. So I think in general, being a good person is about understanding where these rules are related to people's values and understanding where these rules are in place just to keep you in the system itself. An example would be, okay, so walking into somebody's house in shoes in Japan, that's going to affect their values. But what if you change the system up? What if you bring them a gift, right? And maybe they don't do that in Japan. I'm not a fan with Japanese culture too much, but let's say you surprise them. You've broken the rules, but you haven't done it in a negative way. Now, that doesn't mean you have to play safe all the time. It just means that when you're going to break rules, have a think about like, okay, is this going to really affect somebody's personal values? Or are you just going to wake them up that the fact they're in a game?
And that's what it's all about, no? In the end, like waking people up to the game.
Yeah. I mean, it could be. I think the answer, I think the secret is I'm still trying to wake myself up. But if I can get myself awake, maybe some other people will wake up as well.
They all hear the gong.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Dong.
So how do you connect with yourself? How do you, the basic ingredient for now?
When you say, how do I connect with myself? Do you mean, how did
you phrase it at the beginning? Like it all boils down to how you feel about yourself, or if you're good with yourself.
Right, I understand. Okay, so the relationship we have with ourselves, there's usually something in the way, and that's the voice in the head. So the first, not everyone has a voice in their head. Some people have more than one voice. You know, if you're listening and you've got like 5 voices in your head, don't worry, you are normal. If they're telling you to kill people, you're still probably normal, I think, but maybe go and seek medical advice. But generally, if you've got a voice in your head, that is a barrier to you and your relationship with yourself. The mistake we make is we think the voice is us, but the voice didn't exist when you were born. You had to learn to have the voice. And the voice comes about because what happens is when we're maybe 4 or 5 years old, it's different for everyone, but we might get into trouble. And the feeling of love or safety or security that we might have had temporarily gets taken away because, hey, don't do that. Don't eat that cookie. And so that might happen a couple of times. And we reason this isn't a nice feeling because this feeling of warmth is now gone. Oh, it's come, oh, I've got forgiven, or it's come back. And so we say to ourselves, oh, don't eat the cookie when we're going to eat the cookie because, we get in trouble. And so the voice starts taking root at that early age. And then as we get older, the voice it's looking out for us. It wants to keep us safe. But around the age of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the voice becomes self-aware, like Skynet and Terminator. Like, it's fire, it starts shooting at itself. So the voice realizes that whenever you feel pain, because that's what it was originally there to protect you from, whenever you feel that sense of pain, the voice comes on, it comes alive, it has a reason for being. So the more pain that you feel, the more the voice exists. And the voice goes from being something that protects you to being your judge, your jury, and finally your executioner. Now you might think, well, hang on a minute, I don't talk to myself bad. I've got a pretty good relationship with my voice. Maybe. The voice, what it does is it causes doubt because there's many forms of pain. It's not just acute pain of like actually hurting yourself. It's pain of like, oh, I don't look very good today. Or, oh, my back hurts. Or, oh, I feel heavy. Or a really good way is it judges other people. Oh, look at that guy's stupid haircut. Or look at that guy's stupid shoes or something like that, right? And then by doing that, it creates a sense of superiority in ourselves by judging. And then the more superior we feel, the more fragile we become because anyone can start breaking that fragility. So the voice hasn't got our best interests at heart. Now, the solution and the answer to your question, I feel, is if we can master our voice and eventually even allow our voice to disappear completely, then we truly have a connection with our true self, our true being, our true inner light, if we're going to get all really hippie. So how to take control of the voice? Because for most people, the voice is the master. But if you can master your voice, then you become the master. And that's really a process of getting control of your mind. So how to do it? There are many ways. One way is find a discipline. So you have like a classic example would be like craftsmanship, where you're focused in a meditation, like the art of sword sharpening or something, but you have that thing that you do because when you are in that flow state, that's when you achieve the voice going to silence. Another way, which is I think a lot more practical, is we limit the vocabulary that the voice can have. So for me, when I was on this journey, I was like, wow, my voice says so much stuff. But then I thought, what if I just limited it to, like in a video game where you can only say 4 or 5 different sentences. So the one, right? So Monkey Island style. So my voice was, the first phrase I used was maybe. So somebody might say, oh, weather's going to be awful today. Yeah, maybe. Oh, you're so lucky. Maybe. Oh, you're so unlucky. Maybe. So I make everything maybe. Because that doesn't attach to anything. It doesn't make anything part of my story that I don't want it to be. Another phrase that's really good is, I love you. So whenever like my voice would click in, like for example, oh, you dropped your phone, you stupid, I'd replace it, I'd override it and say, I love you. Because when I say I love you, what's happening is I'm telling the voice I love you, I'm telling me I love you, but it's kind of like every force has an equal and opposite reaction. You're also sort of putting it out there as well. I love you. And so I would get into this habit of, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And what that would do is it would quieten the voice down because now the voice's only job is to say, I love you, right? So it's like, hey, and another, I love you. Oh. So it takes the energy out of the voice through love. Now, some people might not be able to say, I love you to their voice. So what you do is pick a part of your body. Maybe, if you can't love you, okay, well, I love you, little finger. I love you. Right? And you can start by improving your relationship with your body by doing that. Anytime you're happy, anytime you're asleep, anytime you're experiencing joy, there's no voice there. if you want to check. The voice is only there when you're having doubt or some negative issue. It may seem positive on the surface, but the voice is only there when negative stuff comes up. And if you really dig deep into why that voice is there, any present moment in your memories, it's because something deeper was going on that was causing unhappiness. So that's how you improve your relationship with yourself. You get control of the voice. You get control of the voice by limiting its vocabulary. 2 phrases, maybe, and I love you. There are several more, or you may even discover your own. Another one of mine is, let's just see what happens. Like, oh, I can go and talk to that girl over there. What are you going to let's just see what happens. Maybe. Yeah, she might reject. Yeah, maybe. Let's just see what happens. I love you. Right? And then you go. And that's a much better dialogue to have in your head than, oh, what if I get it wrong? Or, oh, I don't feel right. Oh, my breath smells. Whatever.
I just want to mention one thing I saw in a video of yours where you invent a secret story of people on the street.
Oh, the hidden secret backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to ask about that, or would you like?
No, just if you can go a little bit into it, because I loved it, because it does, like, you take control of your voice, and at the same moment you engage your imagination.
Right. So for me, so there's a technique where, as your people, because huge value in people watching. It seems quite a passive skill, but if you really put your mind to it, you can get a lot out of it. So one of the lessons is looking around people who are walking past you in the street. Just make up a secret backstory about them. Like, oh, that guy's just stolen a load of diamonds from that woman's purse, right? This lady is actually a catwalk model, and she's got this huge coat on, so no one can see her because she'll just get mobbed by fans, right? So doing that, what it does is it moves you from your logical side of your mind into your creative side of your mind. The systems that exist in society are all logic. So if you can move out of logic into creativity, then you have more freedom to explore. So, and more, you get to use your mind in new ways. It also speeds up your ability to be witty and to think of things, because you play these little games with yourself. So on the deeper level, we're all living a story. Okay, a story of, the story of Chris, the story of Marcus, and I can choose if I'm going to write my story for me, or I can choose if other people are going to take the pen and write bits of it for me. And I found I'm a lot happier when I'm writing the story, pretty much at all times. If someone comes into my life who I'm really close with, I may let them write a bit of that story, but even then, I have great imagination, right? I'm going to write myself a really good story. So I'm always thinking of stories. I'm always thinking of, like, what if this happened? What if that person really did hold up that store with a gun, like right now? What would be, and I let my imagination go wild on that. And because it's interesting, it's fun, and it keeps me from, like, checking my phone all the time. I'm kind of in my own little fantasy world in a way. But that creativity also translates into my conversations. So it's a really good exercise. And again, it keeps the voice busy in a positive way. What that's doing is it's putting the voice to work rather than the voice putting you to work or dragging you through the hot coals, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And how do you write your own story? Do you have any?
That's a great question. You write it with your sense of belief. So what I mean by that is everything we feel about ourselves is true if we want it to be true. Let's say that we summarize what we want in life in one sentence. So, for example, for me, my unbreakable rule that I have for myself is I'm really lucky. It used to be I'm really charismatic, but I achieved that for me. And somebody listening might go, well, you're not lucky, or you're not charismatic, and that's completely valid. They may feel that. And it's up to me if I want to pick up part of and let them write a bit of my story, or am I going to be like, yeah, maybe, I'll bear that in mind. Or am I going to continue writing my own story? So how it works with reprogramming the mind is, you may have heard of, like, affirmations.
Yeah.
For me, I don't like them at all, because they don't seem to work.
And they're already, like, how do you say, part of the imagination. They're like everyone is using them, no, in marketing and la la la.
Right, they've got a bit stale.
Yeah.
Okay, so what has to happen for an affirmation or a line that we give ourselves, a belief that we have for ourselves? Like if I believe I'm really lucky, or I believe I'm charismatic, the thing that sets it apart from an affirmation is it needs to have evidence. Because you can believe, you know, you're 60 foot tall and you have green skin, right? But if you haven't got green skin and you're not 60 foot tall, the belief's not going to last for very long. Or worse, you're going to become delusional. Like, rah! Like that's not the Hulk. So what you have to do is two things. The first is you have to come up with a belief that makes you feel excited. The second is every time you take action, every time you do something, it creates yet more evidence for your belief to be true. So for me, my belief when it was, I'm super charismatic, I could use my mind to say that to myself. I'm super charismatic. And then I might go up and walk up to somebody, start a conversation with them, and their reaction, they might just give me like the most disgusted face possible, like, ugh, what are you talking to me for? Like that kind of response. Now, this is where the important steps come in. You have to then find evidence that actually supports your rule that you believe for yourself. If you don't, your belief will break apart. So for me, I would always, every time I take action, and by taking action, I mean stepping out of the system, pushing my comfort zone, I pat my back. That's the first thing I do. Like, well done me, pat my back, good job. Then I think, what did I do well? Well, you know what? I walked up to that person and I said hi. So I did that well, right? And then I'd ask myself, well, how do I know I did well? Because yeah, I can say I did well, but how do I really know? Well, they did look at me like with a disgusted face, but okay, what else? How do I know I did well? Well, I know I did well because as I approached them, I was able to hold their attention for 10 seconds. Like, yeah, right. So that causes me to dig deeper. And that's where the evidence is. That takes a while sometimes to come up with that answer. Okay, so good. So there's my evidence. Then I asked myself the third question. If I could do this again, what would I do next time to improve it? Even more. And then what I do is I'd sit and I'd think and this is where I'm using my brain now, the logical side of my brain as my servant to help me out here. So I'm like, okay, you know what, next time I could smile more, right? So I'm like, okay, got it, smile more. And so this is how you practice. It's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect. So it's the difference between, you want to improve your conversation skills. So you walk up to somebody, say hi to them, you get like a good or bad result. You go on to the next person, you get a good or bad result. You go on to the next person. I've seen people do this where they talk to hundreds of people in a month. They don't get any better. They don't improve. Why? Because in between every time they take action, they don't stop and think what they did well. They don't stop and think how they know they did well. And they don't stop to consider what they could do better next time. So those three questions keep you on point and keep you improving. So you don't just get stuck in your own pattern. And I've seen that a lot with, as I said, guys running up to girls on the street saying, hi, not working. Oh, it must be me. And then repeating the same process over and over and over again, getting stuck for years at a time. It's pretty depressing. So how you write your own story is you control your pen, and how you control your pen is you work out one belief that you want for yourself. And then you look for evidence for it everywhere.
That's interesting. And let's go into how you work with an actual client. And do you also work with women, or how is it?
Yeah. My last client was a woman. When I started, I mainly worked with men. But you know what? Men and women, they have the same core problem, which is not being able to connect. It's women are generally more socially intelligent than guys. But guys seem to throw themselves more into the deep end more, like to take more risks. But both of them have that problem of they can't connect with the other person, whether that's women connecting with women, men connecting with women, men connecting with men. It all comes down to what level of connection they have with themselves. But you were asking me about working with client and what that was like.
Yeah, like a case story or whatever. Or I'm interested also in, like different stages. So the first stage would be just being able to go to say hi to someone. And then others are stuck on small talk, and then how to move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, every client is different, right? But generally, Some people get stuck with just, making that approach and starting a conversation. For others, they can do that part really well and they get stuck connecting. So they'll meet people, but it won't go any further. So the very first thing is to find out why that person wants coaching. Why are they there? Right. And then let's say they want to improve conversation skills, for example, because that's a common one. What we would do is we don't drop people in the deep end and say, okay, let's go and say hi to 50 people or something, because that is useful, but it's a very good way to fry somebody's circuits as well. So what we do is we rehearse perhaps getting our mind in the right place. If our mind is in the right place, then whatever comes out our mouth is going to be good anyway. A really good concept that I like to teach is a principle. It's called the go first principle. So by going first, you set the expectation you want others to follow. So setting the expectation might be thinking in your head, I'm a good person. This is a good person I'm going to chat to, and the conversation is going to go amazing. So you say a truthful statement about you, a truthful statement that you believe about them, and a truthful statement about how you want the conversation to go. Now, if you have that in your head, the chances are what you say next is going to come out a lot better than trying not to get it wrong. You will respond to the emotions of the conversation, not the words themselves. A good way you can practice this, just for fun, try it out, is the sentence you can say to, if you find somebody in a shop and they're looking really bored, so like a shop worker looks bored. If you walk up and you say, you look bored, they may laugh, right? Depends how you say it. But if you say, you look bored, same words, different tonality, you can pretty much gauge what response you're going to get, because if you're saying it with that jovial sense of emotion, they will respond to the emotions more. They're more likely to respond like, you caught me, or, oh yeah, oh God, I'm waiting. If you say, you look bored, they might give you a funny look. I actually like getting the funny looks more. I like to actually try down the other way, making it as dull as possible. Like, you look bored. Right? So do you see how the same sentence has different ways that you can communicate it? So we'll look at, for example, getting your head in the right place and creating the intent that you're going to have a great conversation, because that's going to affect things like vocal tonality. The next thing we'll do is everyone has a magic number, right? And that is the number of people they need to speak to that they can feel authentic, that they can feel relaxed. So a beginner might need to talk to, say, everyone's different, but it might need to talk to, say, 30 people before they can really just ease up. They might need to talk to 100 people. They might need to talk to 5 people. I don't know. But what I do know is that number, the more they practice, it will drop. So if they practice talking to one new person a day, that number might drop from 30 to like 5 in the space of a month, which means that they know, you know what, I've got to have 5 rubbish conversations today just to wake myself up, just to stretch like I'm going to the gym. But then I'll be in my sweet spot, my good zone for talking to people. So one of the things we do is we identify, what is your magic number? How many conversations is it going to take you? Something that I found when I was learning these skills, and as I said, I'm still learning now, but something I found is I would start talking to people. I'd put loads of practice in. I get good. And then I take a break. Maybe I had an exam I had to do, or a project I was working on. And so I wasn't talking to anyone. And then I'd think, yes, I've got this part of my life fixed and handled. Then I would pause, a couple of months would pass by, and I feel like I'm back to square one again. All that's happened. So you can relate?
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering. Also, how you gauge the results with your clients, or like how you see like they're making actual progress.
Right. Well, I'll come on to that in a sec. When you take a break, you get rusty, and that's okay. And when you start conversations again, your magic number might go back from 5 to 25, but then it will drop again really quickly. It's like when people go down the gym, they lift weight, they get really strong, they stop, they get really podgy, they go back. The first week is a bit hard, but then they get back into the swing of it again. And it's like that with conversation skills. So you're asking me how I know if it's a success or not. Well, back in the day, when I started coaching people, I used to be so stressed. I'd find it incredibly difficult because I wanted them to have the perfect experience. Like they walk up to some gorgeous girl, if it's a guy, and oh, there's a gorgeous girl there. They go and get the number, they call them up, they're going to go on a date. Like it's very tangible, right? And it's like, and I wanted that for them. But then I realized that actually that might not be what they need. They may think they want that. What I'm looking for to know if they're successful is, can they take action whenever they want? Can they get to the point where whatever happens, they can find the positive that will reinforce their belief? If they can do those two things, that is everything. The results are meaningless. Now, that doesn't mean, you know, I don't want good things for my clients, and I don't want good things for them and everyone I meet. But what I mean is, I have no control, and that person has no control over what happens when they start a conversation. They have, all of us only have control of two things. One, our decision to take action. So being curious and taking action. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have full control over our reaction to their reaction of us. We don't have any control over their reaction. We can hedge things in our favor by perhaps smiling, you know, by taking an interest in that person, by you know, being as seamless as we possibly can. But still, they might have had the worst day that day, and there's nothing we can do about that. Now, what I learned very early on is the people who are natural, who can just start conversations and they have success after success after success, there's never any bad results for them. That happens because they've never had any bad results in the past, which is a paradox. How do you get that? Well, you do what we were talking about. You look for what went well, because you always get an ability to pat your own back. What keeps my students stuck, if they're not following what they're doing properly, is they'll have a conversation, they get a great result and they feel amazing about it. They then go and have another conversation and it doesn't go so well. And then they forget to pat their back. And then their belief system starts crumbling. So what I focus on is, as they leave, are they patting their back? That's the habit to forge. Are they taking action? And are they completely aware that it's not about the other person's reaction, it's their own reaction to that person's reaction? When they get those three components in place, then they're ready to get onto the really exciting stuff. But they're the things that set everyone apart. If you can take on those three concepts, that's what builds amazing ability to connect with people.
And what's the really exciting stuff?
It's available in my $1 million program. So the really exciting stuff is when you dig deeper, and you dig deeper into the concepts of belief, spontaneity, connection, rhetoric, presence. So I'll give you a concept I really like. It's nice and simple, but it's very effective, is the concept of yes and, where when somebody says something, right, let's say, because a common problem is people run out of things to talk about in conversations. And so if we hear the sentence, the dog played the piano, there's actually three things we can talk about. If we listen, there's three offers to expand that conversation in that sentence. There's the dog, there's playing, and there's piano. We can talk about dogs. Oh, huskies are amazing. We can talk about pianos, almost as good as a harpsichord. Or we can talk about playing, something we don't do enough because everyone lives in a logical world. So if we listen, we always have things to talk about, these offers to expand the conversation. So as I'm chatting to somebody, I'm always trying to think, what are their offers? What things are they saying that I can then take and then build upon? If I take their offers and build upon them, we won't run out of things to talk about. But if I take their offer and ignore it and talk about my own thing, for example, I say, yes, but, then I'll block the conversation, and that's how the emotion fizzles out. So, would you like to try it as an exercise?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So for example, we're going to tell a story.
Yeah.
Okay? And we're going to take it in turns. I'm going to say, I'll start the story off. We're just going to add one statement at a time to add to the story.
Okay.
And we've got to start each statement with yes and. Okay, so once upon a time, a monkey climbed up a tree.
Yes, and then he found 2 pairs of pineapple.
Yeah, and these pineapples were so huge that he was trying to work out how to carry them without falling out of the tree.
Yes, and he was almost slipping, but then a huge gorilla came to his aid.
Yeah, and this gorilla saved him and took one of the pineapples as payment.
Yes, and at first the monkey was a bit pissed, but then he patted the gorilla's shoulder.
Yeah, and this gorilla was wondering why his shoulder smelled of pineapple now.
Yes, and the monkey communicated to him in his monkey voice that it's the newest perfume.
Okay, so let's just stop there because we can go on forever like this. So, a monkey climbed up a tree, got two pineapples, fell out the tree, a gorilla saved him, and then he had some sort of payment of pineapples, and then discovered there was some sort of pineapple perfume going on. That would be. Okay, so let's try that again, but this time we're going to do the same exercise. We're going to say yes, but. Okay, so, once upon a time, a cat walked down a road.
Yes, but the road was very sticky.
Yeah, but that didn't matter because it was raining, so it kind of loosened things up.
Yeah, but sunshine would have been much better.
Yeah, but it was also a Thursday.
Yes, but even Thursdays could be much sunnier.
Yeah, but it didn't matter so much because there was a steamroller coming down the road.
Yeah, but the driver was really boring.
Okay, so let's just cut there. So what happened with that story? A cat walked down the road and nothing happened. Pretty much. There was a steamroller. I'm pulling the conversation one way, you're pulling the conversation the other way. It's going backwards and forwards, but there's no narrative happening. We're not building something together there.
That's what I felt. It felt like the first thing is adding and adding and adding, and the excitement building. It's amazing.
Well, it takes sacrifice, it takes forgiveness and charm to do that, because you may think, oh, he's got these two pineapples and he's going to throw them and he's going to punch another monkey in the face. And then I come along and say, oh yeah, but then he kind of falls out the tree. So it's steering it away from what might have been in your mind. And then I might think, yeah, he's going to fall out the tree and he's going to land on an alligator. But then you're like, no, a gorilla came in and saved him. So we're having to let go of our story and give it up to the other person. But because of that, we actually grow stronger together. Now, how this translates into actual conversations, it can be really simple. For example, what's your favorite football team if you have one?
Like soccer?
Yeah, I hate football. That's why I was like, I'm going to ask that because I have no idea about football at all.
Bayern Munich.
Okay, Bayern Munich. And let's say my favorite one is Arsenal. All right, so if, for example, we yes but each other, it could be, Arsenal were pretty good.
Yeah, but they got destroyed 3 times in a row by Munich.
Yeah, but Munich, is that really a country or is it a province? What's going on there? Do they even have a football team?
Yeah, but London is too crowded.
Yeah, but it makes up for it in other ways. It's got a really good tube system. All right.
Yeah, but,
Go on, no, you have to get the last word in. Otherwise it's going to feel bad.
I wouldn't live there for extension of my life for 20 years.
Whoa! I'm living that life right now, dude. Okay, so what just happened there is we were in a state of yes, but. It seems kind of hospitable on the surface, amicable, but really there's an argument going on. It's just like an argument with sort of smiley faces. If people yes, but too much, in other words, if they reject what somebody offers them and talk about their own thing, and they do that too many times, ends up in an argument, or you end up not connecting. The conversation fizzles out because people don't want to argue. They're like, oh, I don't have the resources to argue. I'm just going to withdraw. So that's a very interesting concept. Now, when you said exciting things, we've looked at yes, but and yes, and. There's also 2 others. There's no, but, and no, and. And for me, no, and is where the really exciting stuff happens. Well, that's another conversation. But hopefully that will give you enough to practice with, because even just using yes, and on its own. one little caveat to say is you can actually say yes and. It's quite robotic, but it's more the sentiment of yes and. So, for example, we want to go and go for food, and I say, how about a curry? Rather than saying yes and we can go and get poppadoms while we're having the curry. You don't have to say it like that. You can go, sounds amazing, curry's my thing. That's still yes anding, but you're not actually using those two phrases there. Okay. Sorry.
and no, I've just, yeah, you have still time for 2 more questions, because like time was running.
That's fine, yeah. If everyone's happy to listen.
So first one would be, how do you go to a party by yourself and become the life and the soul of the party, or have a really good time and engage groups? Like,
yep. Yeah. Okay, so is that like a house party, or is that like a party at a...
Could be everything.
Bar? Okay. So I'll give you 2 different answers for 2 different common parties, right? So house party. Usually when you walk into a house, there's, like kitchen, couple of rooms downstairs, maybe room upstairs, whatever. Every house is different. So the key thing in both of those situations is, as you're walking around, just saying hi to people, like, all right, hi, just smiling. Because what happens is, in a party, there's like a circulation of people. And if you're in a nightclub, there's like a circulation of people. And so what happens is, if you start a conversation with somebody and they acknowledge you, that's all that's got to happen, that reciprocation, like hi, and the other person goes, huh? Because that's happened, you've opened up a channel between you and that other person. And they move on, and you see someone else, you're like, hi, and you open up that channel again of conversation. You don't go any further than hi, or if you really want to do it properly, you make them feel an emotion. So you say, whoa, I love those shoes, awesome. And they're like, oh, thanks. Then leave. You've opened up a connection. You've made them feel an emotion as well. And so what you do is you do that with as many people as you can at the party. You don't get into any conversations with them, right? You just go around putting rabbits in hats like that. Now, in a house, the best place to do that is in the kitchen area, because everyone is in the kitchen to get beers, and they get their beer or their drink, and then they disappear again. So if you're there, all these people are going to come in, and you can just be lazy like me and just be like, hey, all right, how's it going? Cool, you brought in some sunshine with you. We're indoors, but you've brought it in. Thank you very much. How much do I owe you? Right? And they might look at me and go, weirdo. Right? Or they might engage in conversation. That's fine. Either way is a win. This is the problem. There's no such thing as a win or lose. It's a win, right? Because they may like me, they just don't know yet. Right? So then they leave, they come back again. I was like, oh, you're back again. Are you an alcoholic? Right? And then another little sentence is shared. They go. And then what you can do is, if you do that with enough people, you'll tease into conversations anyway. Conversations happen when there's a reciprocation, connections happen, should I say, where you say something, the other person adds, and then you add, and you start yes-anding each other. So it's more the mindset of, when you go into the party, you're thinking, right, I'm going to say hi to everyone here. That's it. Now, the good thing is, if you're just doing these little highs and hellos, and maybe you look statements, or anything you're curious about, you're not investing a huge risk. Like, if it doesn't work, like if a person doesn't hear you, it doesn't matter, because you can go on to the next person, the next person. The best place to do that in a club is at the bar or near the toilets, because people are moving backwards and forwards. If you don't feel comfortable standing there by yourself, that's okay. Don't take out your phone. Like, leave your phone at home or stick your phone in your back pocket. It's easy to go on the phone, right? That's suicide. Don't do that. Just circulate, have a walk around. If you don't know anyone there, like you've literally turned up and the person you're supposed to be meeting, or the person you know, they're not there, be honest, right? And I can't be honest, I'll look like a dick. No, be honest, right? So just go up and say, hey, I actually don't know anyone here. If you feel nervous, go, I'm really nervous. I don't look it because I'm like, oh, pretty cool, but I'm nervous and I wanted to come and say hi. And you do that. That will lock you in with that group. That group will probably be nice to you because you've been vulnerable. The shift that happens when you go from just being like, hey, because that's good. But the thing that really causes the connection is when you exchange names. So you say, you know, I'm Marcus, by the way, or don't actually go around saying you're Marcus if you're not Marcus. Like, put your own name in there, right? I'm Helen, all right? And then what will happen is the other person will reciprocate, oh, I'm Joe, this is Matthias, and whatnot. And then that exchange will happen. And then you're different from everyone in the room. You've got that group you can chat to. And that's like your little safe base. And then, you know, disappear for a bit. So, oh, I'll catch up with you guys in a bit, walk around, maybe do that again. And so you have that. I don't know if you ever remember Mrs. Doubtfire. God, I'm aging myself now.
No.
There's a bit at the end where Robin Williams has he has dinner with his boss and dinner with his family, and he's like, I'm just going to the toilet, and he disappears. He's like, he turns up to the boss's table. Hey, how you doing? Oh, great. Has a chat with him. Oh, I've just got to go and check the menu. Gets up, walks over to the other table. Like, so he's going backwards and forwards, and you can do that between groups at the party. Once you've done that once or twice, you'll be so ingrained in the party anyway, chatting to people. Your job at the party is, people go to a party to have emotions. That's why they're there. They do that by drinking if they don't know how. Drinking's great, by the way, big advocate of that. But they're drinking to get over their nerves, which is not good. All right. What you want to do is be in that state of yes and, oh, tell me about you. Like, look at the expressions on my face, like, oh wow, really? Oh, brilliant. I'm happy, I'm enthusiastic. If you're generating emotions like that, people are going to be interested in that. The trick is not to go overboard, right? You've got to let other people have the limelight as well. So in a nutshell, before you go into the party, think, right, this is going to go well. I'm going to meet interesting people. I'm going to say hi to everyone, see what happens. If I don't like it, I can go home, but at least I'm going to say hi to everyone before I do. As you walk in, just warm yourself up straight away. Warm yourself up even before you get to the party, right? Maybe you go to a shop beforehand. You say, excuse me, what's the time? Just to get that mind rolling, just to get through your magic number, right? And so you go through the party, you walk towards the kitchen because that's where the drinks are, and you say, oh, like this. Oh, hello, I don't think we've met before. I'm Marcus. Oh, nice to meet you, Steve. And you walk past. You leave those conversations because that person knows they're going to see you again. They won't feel overwhelmed. They won't feel like, how long is this guy going to stay here for chatting to me? I don't even know who he is. You're literally just doing a drive-by. Now, if you're not sure about that or you're worried, what you do then is you change gears a bit. You find a happy-looking group. You walk up to them and you say, hey, I don't know anyone here. I just wanted to come and say hi because, yeah, I'm a bit nervous. This is the first time I've been to a party by myself. The more you talk about yourself honestly like that, you're giving the other people in that group offers to talk about. Wow, you came to a party by yourself? Oh, wow, you're nervous? It's the vulnerability that connects, and it makes you interesting because they haven't gone to a party by themselves before either. So that makes you stimulation for them, and that's why they come to a party, to meet interesting people. So that's generally the quick answer.
Yeah.
The whole day on that, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, final question.
Oh, final question. Okay, I'm ready.
I guess. Where do you see, like, with your work, like the vision, the bigger picture, how it could change the world, how a changed the world would look like?
Wow, that's I'm very flattered to be asked that. When I started this journey, I was just selfish because it was just for myself. And then as I started working with people, I realized that it could make a difference. And I got to the point where I was working with a lot of people and I just got so burned out and I retired. I took a step back and I've been in retirement now for like 2 years. Just like, okay, I'm done with this. Like this, for me, the problem, I'm fixed. It's done. Hooray. Still learning, but you know, the pain isn't there anymore. So in the last couple of months, what I wanted to do is I thought, well, how can I make this more useful for people? So I wanted to make more videos. I wanted to help people become empowered and become leaders because the world needs charismatic leaders. Nothing good is built alone, right? Even if you've got the best painting that an artist has created, it still needs a frame. Still needs to put a nail in the wall to hang it up, right? Someone to make the paints. And so all the good stuff that exists is when people come together, they connect, and there's a synergy created. You know, those 6 people who come together and create a business that helps people in different countries or is a force for good in the world. I don't want the blocks between people, their ability to connect, to prevent that from happening. So for me, my mission has changed in a bit now. So I'm like, right, I want to pass that on. So to do that, what I've done is I've brought in a couple of partners who can help me expand, and I can focus on doing the work I'm best at, and they can focus on doing the work they're best at. And so the goal is to train the new generation of your Charisma Coach trainers, YCC trainers. And we're going to be doing that twice. We're going to be doing it in America in June, July sort of time. And we're going to be doing it in September in Europe. And the idea is that we pass on our knowledge and all the lessons we've learned onto the next generation so they can stand on our shoulders. Because the 15 years of work I've done, as much as I'd like to say it would take 15 years to pass on this to you, no, because if we take all the mistakes out, we take all the stuff that's not really necessary, all the fluff, and we condense it down, we can probably fill 3 weeks to a month. And if I can give that to somebody, they can use that and, you know, upgrade their social skills. Now they can start from a much higher rung on the ladder than I did. And they can discover loads of new cool stuff because there's so much new stuff out there to learn. That's right. There's always new stuff. So my goal in that respect is to reach as many people as possible. It sounds a bit like every single coach in the world, but and it's always been for people to empower themselves because you know, most of the stuff we teach is free. It's on YouTube. It's free ebook and whatnot. And I want that because I want people to have access to that because it makes the world a better place. And if the world's full of better people, I got to live in this world as well. So it's win-win for me in that respect. So I think that's my legacy in that respect, right? It's not about using techniques. The highest level of any martial art or any system is like that level 5, but it's open hand, right? The best swordsman isn't, or swordsperson as it is nowadays, right, isn't the person who can fight the sword. It's the person who loses their sword and can still fight. Having an open hand, being completely spontaneous, being able to solve problems on the spot. So my goal is to teach the next generation how to get to that level 5, so they can be completely open hand, create their own techniques, and then people can learn those techniques, and then they can forget about those techniques, and they can invent their own ones, and yada, yada, yada. That's not a good way to finish off that, but hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of the spirit of what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah. Maybe one crazy story.
Yeah. From me or you?
From you.
Oh, a crazy story. Well, what would you like to know?
I don't know. Probably you have many, no? Like what did I read? You jumped onto stage, something like that. Something that most people would think like, wow, I could never do that.
You know, I have a secret confession to make. And that is whenever I come across this kind of question, I always think, oh no. And the reason is so many crazy things happen that it's my norm. And because it's my norm, it doesn't stand out as crazy. So I'm like, and I'll tell somebody something. They're like, what, that happened? I'm like, yeah, that's just, so what? So I don't mean to sound arrogant there, but what I'm trying to say is when you're going out, you're doing you're living life in your terms, loads of crazy stuff happens anyway. And it just becomes like second nature. So I'll try and answer your question though, in the best way I can. There's so many things I can tell you. I had dinner, beautiful sushi dinner with the son of, I think it was the chairman of Toyota in Tokyo when I went. Just by meeting people, right? I've been upgraded to business class so many times by breaking phatic conversation. So, for example, when you just go and check in your ticket, and you're like, hey, yeah, where are you flying to today? Yeah, there's boring conversation, right? So what if you walked in and you go, how are you today? And they're like, good. You go, thank God. Right? That's enough to create an emotional spike and change the nature of the conversation. Don't do it more than once though, otherwise it get boring. Wow. I mean, okay, here's a story. I don't know if I told this one before, but there was a Star Trek movie that came out a couple of years ago. And I was in a bar with my student. It was in London, Leicester Square. And, you know, all the people were there like getting autographs and up and down the red carpet, all the stars were there. And we were just like, we went to some pub nearby, and our goal was we were just doing what we do at a party, just walking around chatting to people, just like, hi, just little drive-by chats, nothing too big, not here's my life story, just more like, oh, what are you guys conspiring about? You know, just that kind of, bringing in that kind of positive energy. So we walk around, and there's this guy and two girls in a corner, and we start chatting. And I think the question came up like, oh, so what brings you to London? Just something really mundane. And he said, oh, that Star Trek movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I wasn't into Star Trek at the time. I am now. I'm a bit of a geek with it. But I said, is it any good? He's like, yeah, it's all right. I was like, oh. I said, so what? Yeah, so you came for the Star Trek movie and it's only all right. He's like, well, yeah, I was supposed to go to that event outside, but I couldn't be bothered. And I was like, oh, all right. So how were you? What's the situation there? And we were chatting a bit more. He's like, you wouldn't be interested. I was like, go on, tell us. Turns out he was the producer of the movie, right? And I was like, oh, okay. And he bought us drinks, and we had fun. We did shots together. And when I checked out the movie, yeah, that was his name. There he was. I was like, no way, that's so cool. And that was just a guy in a pub that didn't look like a producer. He was just some dude. Right.
So you're entering kind of a different reality on a regular basis. A
different reality for me is like everyday life.
Yeah,
is what I try and escape from as much as possible. But from the perspective of the question, yes, there's a secret game being played around us all the time. And I guess what I like to know is how those games are being played. What are the rules? How can we break the rules? How can we have fun with them? I don't want to be stuck in just the mundane day-to-day business, because that's not fun. It's boring. Our lives are worth more than that. Your life's worth more than that. My life's worth more than that. Let's not be people who are watching the football match from the edges, you know, in the audience. Let's be on the pitch, having fun and exploring and discovering. So, yeah, I think any time you can go and do something and pat your own back from it, like just go, well done. That's a crazy story, and I think we've all got that capability. So that's me on my soapbox. But yeah.
That are good final words.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thank you a lot. I feel really lit up. So I feel that attests to the magic of your being.
That'd be
your work. Yeah.
No, that's very kind. Thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Yeah. You want to give out your homepage for people that are listening? I will also put it.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. So if anyone would like to get a free book on conversation skills, if you go to yourcharismacoach.com, you can get my free book, and there's videos there, and hopefully not any viruses. I think it's all good. Yeah, come along, and yourcharismacoach.com. I sound like an actor. Your charisma coach.
No, you can say it several times in different voices.
Your charisma coach. Yeah, it sounds like a mouthful though. When I came up with the name, I wish I called it something shorter, just like charisma, charisma coach or something. Look, your charisma coach. But anyway, we stuck with it now. So
yeah, that's fine.
Well, cheers, Chris.
Okay, wish you a great day in London.
Likewise.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm like, do I close the laptop now? But well, thanks for having me on the show.